right, guys. I didn't do that right, of course. All right, campaigns continue. We're almost in agreement. Almostinagreement at gmail.com. You find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. You go to our website, almostinagreement.com. While you're there, please check out my job description sheet as well as our voter guide for this 22 election and all the madness that's going on. That voter guides, it's just a quick list all the way down, everybody who's got their petitions filed right now and who is running. We've had a few subtractions, but for the most part, it's just going to be links to their interviews if they've done an interview with me, and then I'm going to have links to their websites or their Facebook page or whatever personal things they're using, just to give you at least a starting place to go out and do your stuff. Get on your favorite podcast provider, give us a 5-star review, give us a like or share or whatever, tell your friends about us. We joke all the time about how important local governance is, but how little we actually pay attention, so I'm trying to give you guys an excuse to not blame it on the media, at least for once. But I got Dylan Earley, with us today. He's running for seat 10 in County Commission. That's net large. That's countywide, so it doesn't matter who you are. If you're in Knox County, this one counts for you. But he also brought some whiskey to start it off, so a little day drinking on today's show. Not mad at that. So without further ado, here we go. Dylan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Cool. You're gonna have to get right up on that thing.
Gotcha.
You can pull it. It'll come out a little bit. There you go. So District 10 or Seat 10 County Mission, it's at large. So I always like to do. I haven't had. It's the first time we've met. Actually, thank you and cheers.
Of course, absolutely.
Oh yeah, early drinking. I like it. Anyway, first time on the show. I always like first time to do a quick. I guess I'll talk first because you're one of the younger people I've met so far. How old are you?
I am 25.
25. So in the last 25 years, what have you been doing?
So I was born and raised in Greene County. That is about an hour east of Knox County. Went to West Greene High School. It's one of the the poorer high schools in the county. And then went to Carson Newman. Got a bachelor's degree in history with a minor in law and policy. And from there, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with my history degree, so I knew I wanted to be in Knoxville, so I came to Knoxville, got the first job I could find in finance, believe it or not, and I've been working in there for about 4 years now, 21st Mortgage. Currently pursuing my master's degree in strategic communication from American University in D.C. It's an online program. And in the meantime, I've been, I mentioned it in my press release, I've been consulting with some small businesses on their communications and marketing strategies. I've been mentoring some students from Maryville College and UT on kind of their professional development. I'm a first-generation college student, so helping people navigate that's really important for me. So that's what I've been kind of doing in the meantime.
Okay, so where does politics come into this conversation?
Well, I've always been interested in politics from as early as I can remember, elementary age. Came home, mom's watching Dr. Phil, and I'm like, Mom, put C-SPAN on. That was me from an early age. So I've always had a deep interest in governing and politics. I was always interested in getting into public service. I don't know that I was planning for it to be this soon, but, there were some people in the community that had reached out to me and asked if I'd be willing to do it and thought that I'd be good at it. And it's, I'm excited. So.
Okay, because I heard rumor that you were a Republican and you switched teams. Is that correct?
Yes.
Or is that bad rumor?
Yeah. So I was a Republican for a long time, to the degree that I even helped found the Young Republican group in Greene County. When I was in college, I was going back and forth from Jefferson City to Greenville to help kind of run the show. And then it came to the point where it was time to endorse Trump on our social media, let everybody know that that's who we were supporting once he won the nomination. And I had decided at that point that I was not going to support him. So the chairman of our county party reached out to me and said, "Hey, where's your posts about Trump? Like, why haven't you endorsed him yet?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not going to do that. He doesn't align with my values. I don't think he aligns with the party, and I'm not going to publicly support him." Well, he said, "You can get your post up by tomorrow or you can leave the party." And I said, "All right, I will see you later." And that kind of put me in a period of political homelessness. I kind of had to do some, for lack of a better word, some soul searching, figure out where my values really aligned. And then, of course, in that stretch, my values kind of changed. My beliefs kind of changed. I started thinking about, things like what we were spending per capita on prisons versus students, the legalization of marijuana, and how we were really spending our money. How I thought Republicans, when they were in control of the federal government and other governments, other levels of government, I really wondered if I agreed with how they were spending their money. And that kind of shifted me to feeling like the Democratic Party was a better home for me. At the end of the day, I'm still a moderate. I have some of my, at least, fiscal conservative streaks in me, but after a long period of not understanding exactly where I belonged in the political realm, I found that the Democratic Party, for me, was kind of a big tent and was a home for disaffected Republicans like myself.
Okay, because see, I've been a politically homeless for a long time, but I actually found that I kind of like it better that way. But that's to each his own, I suppose. Okay, so but in all that, why now? Why this seat particularly of especially with the 50? I counted and forgot 3 times now how many ballot items we have coming up, because like I've been pounding through all these and I'm just doing county only right now.
Yeah.
I'm not really trying hard on the judges because that's a little bit more complex than my brain can handle.
Sure.
But the big ones being, we've got a ton of commission, we've got a ton of school board, we've got a ton of different stuff going on right now. So politics was a thing for you. The time to step up was now. But why commission, and then why commission at large as opposed to, I don't know where you actually live and whether your district is your district running this time?
No. So I'm in South Knox in District 9, and that one is not up for re-election this cycle. But so this seat specifically was something that those members of the community that had reached out to me, they had suggested this seat. And of course, in the 4 years I've been in Knoxville, I've always kept up with local politics. It's always been a passion for me. But they suggested this seat because it seemed like a lot of people have been frustrated with Larson J. and the way he's been governing in the 4 years that he's been in that seat. And, I started to look into that myself, not into just, the things he supported, but in general, the performance of the commission, the funding for schools, the way that the development has become a sprawl instead of responsible development. And, upon doing my research on the way the commission's been running, I agreed with those people in the community that it was my time to step in the ring.
But so specifically 10 because of Larson as opposed to 11 because of the vacancy?
Yes. Yeah. Larson is the biggest reason I chose to do 10. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So that gets us to here now. I mean, you've definitely touched on a couple of items, but as far as, I pulled up your Facebook page. You have a website too?
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. We'll do the plugs now.
Let's go there. No, well, we'll do the full plugs at the end, but I want to see, I find it easier to let you speak about what's the top issues for you, and then I can expound upon thoughts and whatever, as opposed to me trying to ask specific questions. I do have my 5 question set, which I'm sure you've heard at this point. Yeah. So you got research. So special thanks to whoever was first in this thing this year, who having to sit through the 5 questions. That's Brianna in District 1 of school board. She was the first one to take the 5 questions. So anyway, I pulled up your website here. We could see it. The listeners, or at least listeners of course can't, but the people on YouTube can't see it either. But what's the top platform stuff for you?
I would say I've got 2. There are several things that I'm interested in trying to fix and putting my stamp on in Knox County, but I would say the top 2 are education and development. I think those are what most of Knox Countyans are concerned about. When I say education, I mean specifically funding and ensuring that KCS sends budgets to the Knox County Commission that include significant raises for teachers. When I say development, I mean bringing the community back into it. Kim Frazier, don't agree with her on a whole lot, but she's kind of championed this development thing, and she made a statement to the Compass that said developers run Knox County. I would take that a step further and say that developers own Knox County and that the commission has sold it to them. So that's a big issue for me. You look at the financial disclosures of some of the representatives on the commission, my opponent specifically, and he's taking donations from some of these development
Right, that's
companies.
on my to-do list to start to take through it. I was reading Hornbeck had done a post about some financial disclosures and stuff. I'm like, I want to say it's like Sherry Witt running on a post for county clerk, raised like $48,000
exactly
in this quarter, and it's like, okay, but you're running on a post. What are you raising money for?
Exactly, and Larson himself,
which I'll ask her about. Her Friday. I'm excited about.
Sure, he's got $150,000 himself, and don't get me wrong, I understand a county-wide race is going to be a little more expensive than if you were running in just a single district. But $150,000. I mean, I would encourage you could do an entire series on the financial disclosures that available on the election.
Yeah, I'll have to. I'll call Todd back in from Morristown. He'll help me with those.
Yeah,
he's the money guy he's the most fun money guy. He's good at keeping up with that. I mean, and Brian, for that matter, he at least announces them. I don't know how well he looks into the depths and where they came from and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very telling.
Okay, so I mean, on development, like I would argue that as a commissioner, the number one actual day-to-day job that a commissioner really, really actually does is land use and how we deal with this. And so when Kim was here, she was talking about her help in developing this. I can't remember his long-term strategic 30-year plan, whatever the terminology was and stuff like that. And I haven't got a chance on that list of things to actually start reading through that book. But I think that's realistically one of the biggest and probably most important things that I think most people don't pay enough attention to. Is how we go about this growth, because it's not an option it's not a question of if we're going to grow.
Yeah.
It's how much and how fast.
Exactly.
And then how we handle it. And so I don't know, I guess again for you, how do we go about this, or in your opinion, in a better way, for lack of a better word?
Yeah. So the Hardin Valley area for me has been kind of a case study on the incorrect way to do it. It's a part of the community that is still connected through country roads that have been there for decades that are poorly maintained, and there's no real infrastructure connecting all of these subdivisions that have been put in there. So it's sprawl at this point. It's not responsible development, and I'm not opposed to development whatsoever. But I've talked to several people in Hardin Valley and Halls and Powell for that matter, and they're not opposed to development. I don't think there's an individual in Knox County that's opposed to development, but they're concerned at how fast it's going. They're concerned at how little of a budget we have for infrastructure to match this development, and they're concerned about the companies that we're allowing to build the infrastructure on our behalf. And that's a big concern for me. I'd mentioned the donations, and I hate to harp on this, but Safe Harbor Development won a bid to build a subdivision in Hardin Valley. And not only did they win the bid to build the subdivision, they were given concessions. The growth plan recommends, and the Knox County Planning Commission recommends 2 units per acre in Hardin Valley. Well, we gave them a concession to 3 units per acre in Hardin Valley, with the terms that they would spend $750,000 on a roundabout and some street widening in the area. And of course, Safe Harbor has maxed their donation out to Larson J. and some other commissioners on the commission several times. So that leads me to wonder, is this development spurred by community interests, or is it spurred on by the political ambitions of those on the commission that are being funded by these developers?
Okay, so I got a technical question inside of that. Is won a bid for an adjustment to the plan?
Say again. I
mean, they own the property, right?
It's true.
It's county property. It's not like they won a bid to do a road resurfacing.
Yeah. Maybe bid's the wrong word to use there, but we gave them concessions. We allowed them to build.
And again, I just want because again, like one of the things to me, that I'm kind of a free market kind of guy. I kind of like that game. It's like, well, if you want to go buy one of these houses in one of these subdivisions that have too many houses and you're a foot and a half from your neighbor and stuff like that out in Hardin Valley, and the roads suck, I'm not going to really feel bad about it.
Sure.
That's now when I was 27, 29 buying this house, whatever, I didn't really think about that when I was house shopping, but that's on me as the buyer. So, I've heard this on through social media, and some people complain about that. It's like, hey, you bought the house, sure, we need to do some infrastructure improvements. Absolutely. There's lots of infrastructure improvements you make. One of the guys, I think it was Devin Driscoll, was on here, explaining how, as we get these developments open, as that comes with, he likes to say cash register, so we get businesses open in the same region, that starts bringing up the tax base, so that'll bring up some of the tax revenue so that we can turn around and do some of these infrastructure investments. And I get the premise of that, I suppose. But, how do we go about, I mean, I don't know, like it seems to be like if we're going to go out of our way to make sure the infrastructure is in place for these developments, then we're just encouraging the developments to continue the way they are. And if sprawl is a question or a concern, then how do we, because again, I mean, the free market of being, well, I'm the developer, I bought these 100 acres, I'm going to squeeze 200 houses on there.
Sure.
If we're going to acquiesce the infrastructure needs for that development on a county tax basis, then how do we discourage these people from going out and building these giant neighborhoods further and further out when we're going to give them the roads?
Sure. I mean, I get that. And, you know, as far as your free market point, I totally understand that. But at some point, I mean, if we're going to pay property taxes, I think there's got to be at least a reasonable expectation that where we're allowing these developers to set up massive suburbs.
What's the phrase, though? It's like you get what you pay for, right? That's why we don't pay anything in property tax.
Well, that's fair. But, you know, that goes back to the county budget. I mean, we're getting what we pay for. I'm not convinced that these development companies aren't going to cut corners on the infrastructure that they're building with these developments. So, I mean, that's a concern for me. But on how to fix it, I mean, we have to get the community back involved with it. I know that sounds like a simple answer, but you've got people going on record saying, hey, like, we're fine to trust these private developers to build the infrastructure to go along with our developments. And I'm not okay with that. I mean, sure, we're approving them to build more units and we're allowing them to build this infrastructure. But I mean, where's the oversight on that? I mean, how do we know they're not going to cut corners?
See, what's funny about this is I'm hearing Randy Pace talk right now.
Well, you have kids. I mean, and I plan to have kids in the future, and I'm planning to stay in Knox County. I mean, right now we say, oh, the infrastructure's fine. We don't need more than $28 million in the budget for it. But I mean, what's going to happen in 15, 20 years when our kids are adults? And, you know, sewer lines are breaking and we have Flint, Michigan style water.
Well, because I think one of the things too, and it's same thing with these 30-year plan is I don't think I've ever heard a conversation on how much growth we want. And I understand it's not necessarily a public decision. Like we can't just say no, people can't move in here. Sure. I understand that premise of it. But at the same time, by activating to make sure that we have X, Y, and Z in place, make Knoxville more attractive, make Knox County more attractive for X, Y, and Z, like a lot of people are campaigning on. These are the things we want. And I mean, again, I think you're right. I think the average person, if you ask them, they're not necessarily opposed to growth. They might truly be opposed to it when it's the lot next to them. Sure. But, you know, that's like anything that the county does. I'm good with it as long as it's not in my backyard. But I don't know that I've heard that conversation either. And I think that goes to what you're saying as far as getting the community back involved is how much do we really want growth? Mm-hmm. And how do we, and because that goes into how we manage the growth too. Because I just think to me, just to sit back and look at it, it looks like it's just go. Whatever, if whatever the action is can be even construed as a growth program, we're going after it. Yeah. And I don't know if that's the correct move. And I just don't feel like anybody's talking about that part of it. Yeah.
And again, I can't hit on enough how, you know, I'm not opposed to growth and development, but I mean, I think we've reached a level where it's irresponsible. You know, if we can't ensure quality infrastructure that matches our development, I think that's irresponsible. If we can't have enough money set aside to ensure quality infrastructure, that's a problem for me. And it makes me wonder where the money is going in the county budget that we can only allocate $28 million for infrastructure for fiscal year 2022.
Right. Okay. So on the budget stuff I pulled up your Facebook page. One of your more recent ones from your campaign page, at least, is which is kind of funny, being is that you're not a Republican anymore, making fun of bloated governments. And so you got this little infographic. It's Knox County government budgets and salaries of 2022. Mm-hmm. And I guess it's trimming the fat by giving pay cuts to all of our elected officials. Do you know how much a commissioner makes?
Yes, a commissioner currently makes $27,000 for a part-time position, which is kind of absurd to me. When I pulled, I didn't know the salary. I knew all the functions, but the salary was the one thing that I didn't know. You know, I pulled my petition and I filed it. And my mom called me and said, "Oh, congratulations! Like, you know, you're gonna quit your job." And I was like, "No." I was like, in Greene County, which granted it's completely different, but in Greene County, commissioners make $100 a meeting. And I was expecting something on the lines of that with this. So, I mean, even, you know, to touch on the graphic that you've got pulled up on my Facebook, I think $27,000 is too much. And I think over $500,000 for the county commission's annual budget is too much. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to underscore or rather undercut the responsibilities of the commission.
I mean, there's a handful of full-time employees of the commission.
Sure. Yeah.
Because there's a commission secretary. Yeah. Who, in theory, is everybody's secretary as far as, you know, phone calls, messaging, stuff like that, as well as like notes keeping and stuff like that. So I understand there's a handful of full-time people in that as well. Sure. Because 11 commissioners at $27,000 would be that's about half of it. Yeah,
is what it comes to.
A little less than half of the total budget is the commissioner's salary. So, and again, I don't know about this one in particular because I know that the trustee and the mayor's office, the actual trustee and the mayor themselves have a state mandated minimum for that job. Correct. And you know I think the mayor's budget's or the mayor's salary is 180 on your list. I think the state minimum is 171 and some change.
Correct. But my issue is that we are consistently approving raises for each of these elected positions. Every year we're voting to give them raises. Every year we're increasing the budget for their offices. Last fiscal year, the budget for the county trustee's office was in the neighborhood of, I think, 2.7, 2.8 million. And Glenn Jacobs' office got a raise of over $1 million from 2021 to 2022 fiscal year. So those are my issues. Those are just small examples of where there's waste all across the budget. You know, people ask, how can we afford to pay for more infrastructure? How can we afford to give Knox County schools more money?
See, I don't even understand what the trustee's office really does, other than collect taxes.
Well,
and do reports.
Exactly. That's my concern with it. We need.
I was thinking about running for trustee because it looked like an easy job for $140,000 a year.
Well, exactly. And obviously it's important to collect the property taxes, but that office needs $3.1 million annually to collect taxes. I don't know. I mean, I understand there's a staff there, but that just highlights the waste that's all across the budget. I told you, I still have my, some of my fiscal conservative streaks. So when I got into this, the budget was one of the first things that I looked at, and there are problems everywhere.
Yeah, because I like of all of them, and I get the mayor's budget being pretty fat and making a little bit more sense. Yeah. Maybe not making perfect sense, but making a little bit more sense, because the way this thing works is the mayor's office does most of the legwork. The commission's more of an oversight to the mayor than it is an equal body too. But
well, if you see, I don't know how far back it is. It might be a few posts back, but the mayor's staff specifically is where I take issue. He's got 2 or 3 lobbyists on staff that make $60,000 a year, and they're
lobbyists to
the commission. Their sole responsibility is to go to the commission and try to push the budget through. $60,000 a year. Meanwhile, the starting teacher salary in Knox County, if you have a bachelor's degree, is $41,420. There it is. Yeah, that's a problem for me. If Jacobs wants to lobby the commission for his own agenda, he needs to get his butt to the meetings and talk to them directly, not hire 2 to 3 lobbyists to do it for him. I understand he's busy, but he also tweets a lot, so at the end of the day, maybe take some time off of the phone and get down to the commission meetings and lobby your own agenda, so we're not wasting my tax dollars on lobbyists for you to do it, or for them to do it for you.
All right, so this transitions into the teacher thing. How as a commissioner do you fix the underpaid teacher situation?
Well, this is, I've heard a few of your episodes, and several people have labeled it kind of, knocks the commission's relationship with KCS as just a budget conversation. And I think that's a gross oversimplification, but I understand why people think that, because the county commission hasn't been using any of their authority or any of their, ability to be a collaborative body with KCS. They're just blindly approving budgets from KCS. And that's
because again, this is where I get confused, because as I understand it, and as everybody who ever listens to the show knows, I'm perfectly capable of understanding things incorrectly. But as I understand it, it's not even, it's school board gives the mayor a budget. The mayor adds that to his budget. The mayor presents that budget to commission. So as far as I gather it from talking to commissioners in the past, it's not that the commission can go line by line.
Well, that's correct. Yeah, the commission can't go line by line.
It's a full budget or no budget.
Exactly. But I mean, I'm not, I think when you go to the commission, I think you have a legislative agenda. It's a legislative body at the end of the day, and you have to go there with priorities. And I think this just highlights how out of whack the commission's priorities are. I mean, Jacobs touted the 3 to 4% raises that teachers just got with what the state provided and what the county provided. Let's just say it's 4%. 4% of that starting salary of $41,420 comes to about $1,687 annually, gross. That's about $138 gross per month on a check. Those are the raises we're touting. That's the money that we're proud of, that we're including in that we're approving in the KCS budget.
No, I mean, it comes down like Governor Lee said the other day, a couple $1 billion he's going to add to schools.
I've got
and funding and stuff like that. And it's like, I mean, $1 billion sounds like a lot of money.
Well, $125 million of that is what's going towards teacher raises, and it's less than 0.00.
Right, how many teachers do we have in the state?
Oh, I don't know. It's a lot, a lot. So, and WBIR interviewed a Knox County high school teacher, and he was like, well, that's great, but that's going to amount to about $60 more on my check a month.
Right.
I'm like, great. So what we're telling teachers in Knox County with the money that we're putting into KCS is you can get groceries for a few days if you don't have a family. You can fill up your gas tank once or twice more a month. And to me, that's just grotesque. So, no, the county commission doesn't have line by line authority on the budget, but you can go to the commission and set what your priorities are with where you put the money. You do.
But again, like as I understand it, the McPherson and the school board is going to present, or they're already working on their budget for next year, which would be the budget you'd get to see if you get the seat.
Sure.
They're working on that budget now, and they, just like everybody else in the state systems, are sitting in the states kicking out what their projections for each month next year are going to be and all that kind of stuff, which somehow they're really good at.
Yeah.
And McPherson and the school board and that budget team is going to come out with a budget that is the maximum number that they think makes sense for what the budget's going to be allowable for that year.
Well, see, you said it right there, the maximum number for what they think makes sense. And for some reason, larger teacher wages or larger teacher raises are never in that budget that makes sense, which drives me crazy. I mean, at the end of the day, teachers are bearing the burden of our bone dry budget for KCS. So, I mean, to me, the commission is shirking in their responsibilities of being collaborative with KCS, telling them to request more money because we have the money to do it. We have the money to give KCS if they'd request more. But at this point, the commission is just shirking its duties in that they are collaborative bodies and not letting KCS know that we have the money, we're willing to give it. But, of course, KCS is just in a position that they feel that they can't ask for that money, and that's a problem for me.
Right. And we don't know where the mayor sits in that circle of dollars too, because again, the commission might be on board, but if the mayor doesn't include it in his budget, it doesn't matter when it comes to commission in the same turn.
And that's the thing, though, is the commission has that authority to pass or kill those budgets, and this is becoming a nonpartisan issue. I've talked to current members of the commission, I've talked to current and former school board representatives, and they understand that we're about to see resignations in mass from faculty if we don't see increased wages. Everywhere around us pays teachers more. We are at the bottom of the barrel. You know, Knox County is 4th or 5th in property tax revenue in the state, but we don't break the top 15 in average teacher salary.
Well, we also only get 55% or so of what we collect in taxes for schools back from the state.
Yeah.
Because that's a whole other animal, and I've talked to the state reps about it because I somehow am smarter than the average Knox County resident as far as how the BEP formula works. Sure. And that BEP formula, like, I get the premise of, Knoxville or Knox County, Davidson County, Shelby County, stuff like that, having the volume, having the big businesses and stuff like that in place can generate more. So let's put a little bit more weight on them. Sure. But I mean, we had a $640-something million budget for the schools this year. Yeah. The state paid a little over $300.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a broken system top to bottom. I'm just saying in Knox County we're not doing as much as we can.
But I think that's part of the problem is that maybe, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you in the sense that sure, Knox County could do more, but in that same sense of, well, all these other counties are paying their teachers more, all these other things going around is more, and at least running on the assumption that growth is all that really matters. How can we can't do both? We can't raise that revenue to get the more things, to pay those things, but keep the attractiveness of the county and the cheapness that exists. Because there has to be, I mean, yes, we can trim some fat, but I don't know if we're going to, how much do we need to get? What'd your thing say?
It says 60,000, which is not going to happen in year one. It's, but I believe we have the money there to get to that average. I mean, in Maryville, Alcoa, and Oak Ridge alone, teachers are averaging just over $60,000, except for I think Alcoa might be 56 or 7. So I don't think that there's any reason that over time we can't get to that. I mean, I'm not going to just carve out millions and millions and millions of dollars in the first year. But if we do that over time, and we shrink these offices over time, and we look at where we're wasting money, there's no reason we can't get to that average over the next 4 to 5 years.
Right. I'm on board with trimming the fat, but I mean, I just don't see how you get there without some sort of tax hike.
Well, that's fair, but that just highlights how much we're actually wasting in these offices. So I wouldn't,
because the entire Knox County budget is it's less than $1 billion.
Yeah, it's like, I looked at it just last night. I should know the figure.
It's like 9 and some change.
Yeah, it is.
And 600 plus of that is already in the schools. So that leaves us 300 total million for everything else we do in this county.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the sheriff's budget is, but it's up there too. And he's got underpaid deputies.
Yeah.
And that whole conversation, again, like I'm not trying to say that, that trimming the fat is not an important process we need to talk about. but I just don't like with what I know is one of the top topics that's going to be, it's not really a focus per se of mine, but I know it's one that everybody wants to talk about, is it's taxes is a huge part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we get to your goals, because I don't see that we can trim the fat enough to get to those goals without a tax increase to go with it.
I firmly believe it's in there. Now, to say in 10 plus years, or maybe even a little bit sooner, are we going to have to relook at the property tax formula? Maybe. But I don't think it's something we have to do right now. I have spent hours and hours pouring myself into that budget, and it's, like I said, the waste is all over the place. But the place to start are in these offices, in Jacob's office, in the trustee's office, places like that. And it does. You're right. It needs to be redirected to KCS and our underpaid deputies. The comment I made about teacher raises goes the same for the deputies. They got, what was it? They get a 4% raise?
I don't remember what theirs was.
But 4% of nothing is still nothing.
Right.
So that's a problem for me. So I think on the commission, we got to get our priorities in line. And I do firmly believe we can do it without raising taxes anytime soon.
Yeah, I've been trying to get somebody to help explain this third-party attorney thing for the sheriff's office, but
yeah, that's.
I've got JJ here in a couple of weeks. I'm sure he'll tell me all about it.
I'm sure he will. But that's a whole other story on the money.
I'm so confused on that one. Fees. Yeah, and again, like I get, like, I like the idea. I like the idea of making it a forefront part of the discussion all the time.
Yeah. It's a necessity.
Not how much is this costing us. It's where the money's coming from. Where can the money come from, and what are we taking away for it? And I think that's an important conversation to have. Whether it's a 1 to 10 vote every time we have this conversation,
sure,
it's fine. It's on the record, and that's something I think that is a valuable thing that we could stand to see.
Well, and it's a conversation that we just haven't had yet, and that's the biggest problem for me. Is not just where the money in the budget's going, but that we're passing these with little to no debate. We're passing these with little to no input from the community, and we're passing these with little to no concern about how it's going to affect development and education in the long run. And that's a problem for me. It just seems like so many of the commissioners are on the commission just to be there, and they're passing budgets without any regard for the rest of us, and that's a problem for me.
Well, I think that kind of leans into the salary thing too. It's like, how much effort are you supposed to put into something for that amount of money? I know it's supposed to be public service, but let's be real.
Well, I have to disagree with you on that. I think cutting salaries of these elected officials encourages people to, get in the ring that actually want to do it. Not to, for me, I wasn't expecting any money out of it. It's just something that I thought I could do to affect real change in Knox County. It's the one level of government where I think you can see legitimate change, and that's what I wanted to do. So, and
I agree with that part for sure, because I think that's one of the things to me that drives me the most crazy. Like this whole show started on me and my buddies arguing about how important local politics is and having no idea what they are.
Yeah.
And then I got stupid because we were in the middle of 2020 races and started calling people like, "Hey, come do an interview with me." And Gina Oster, who's coming back because she's running for commission now too. Gina Oster was the first one dumb enough to not know better than to say no to me, and so now once I got one, the whole can of worms popped open. So I'm excited to talk to her again, because it might be a bad campaign interview for her, because I'm going to talk more about how excited and happy I am that she exists for my sake, not necessarily for the seat she's running for.
Sure.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like this is the game at play for me that I can't figure out how to make it more engaging, because I think that's the problem. I think that's the number one problem across the board in all topics and all subdivisions of government, is that it's not engaging.
Well, no one on the commission is trying to engage, and that's a problem for me, Democrat or Republican. No one's trying to engage the community. I mean, yes, they say that these meetings are open to the public, and they are. But are you out talking to your constituents, reminding them of when the meetings are, telling them what's on the docket for the meeting, telling them what portions of the budget you're considering that meeting? No. Right. No one's doing it.
And I think again, especially because land use is probably the number one item the commission tends to. I don't think the average person has the time or energy and maybe even capability to actually conceptualize what some of these land use changes mean.
Sure.
And the only way we're going to get there is if that engagement is part of it.
Sure.
So that it's like, hey, you're wanting to do something in Powell, that's way across town to me.
Yeah.
Why does that matter to me? Why do I care how many houses they put in an acre?
Sure.
And,
well, it started in Hardin Valley, and now it's reached Halls and Powell.
Right.
So that's
and that's
why
stupid. The Emory Road exit's going to be the dumbest thing ever.
What's that they're doing now? They're
doing the inverted diamond.
Inverted diamond. Gosh.
It sounds cool.
It does.
And I mean, honestly, to be fair, 407 is actually much more functional now with it.
That's fair.
Than it was. I just can't, the 7 years or whatever it's going to take to do it and all the debacle, because that's where one of my jobs is. And so I'm up there quite often, and Emory Road traffic sucks.
Well, if you want to talk about this, goes back to what I'd said about these private companies and the way we're spending our money in the infrastructure budget. Shad Road, the improvements for that was approved. The initial funding for that was approved on the 2016-2017 budget.
Yeah, I remember Biggs was in here the summer of 2020 talking about how excited they're about to finish it.
Well, they're not about to finish it because they just out of the $28 million infrastructure budget that we just passed, $8 million of that's going to Shaw Road, and it doesn't have a completion date of at least next year. So, again, that's a problem for me. I mean, this is a project we started in 2016. We funded it in 2016. Why is it not done? I mean, you have people coming on your show like Biggs touting that's about to be done in 2020, and here we are in 2022, and it's not even close, and we're putting $8 million more taxpayer dollars into its completion.
I mean, I think that is one of those overarching, continuous, all government things. Nothing costs what they say it's going to cost. It never finishes on time. I mean, I guess Gay Street did. When they redid the Gay Street Big, that one actually finished on time.
Well, the city's doing something right that the county's not. And I think we need to see more collaboration with the city and the county. I mean, clearly they're doing something correctly that the county's not.
Well, they have twice as much money as the county does.
Well, it's not just about the money; it's about how you spend the money, and the county's not spending it well.
Fair enough. Okay. That was exciting. I enjoyed that. We still got plenty of time to go.
Hey, keep them coming, man. I love this.
Again, one of my things, and I was excited to have you on to give you a chance to kind of expound upon it. One of my things is I've always one of the starters for me when I got really interested is watching commissioners run on schools.
Yeah,
because it sounds good, it politics well.
Sure.
But brass tacks of it, that's not really how it works.
Well, I get that. And don't get me wrong, will absolutely see commissioners in this cycle, or commissioner candidates rather, in this cycle run on something like CRT. That's going to happen. Commission has zero authority over standards. Zero.
I mean, hell, you could have a school board member run on CRT, and that's a lie.
Well, it's from the state.
Right.
But for me, it's all about funding. I firmly believe, from the school board members I've spoken to, from the teachers I've spoken to, the members on the commission currently that I've spoken to, I firmly believe that if we see a larger amount of funding go to KCS, it's going to translate to wages. And that is the most important thing.
I mean, I think that's a universal as far as, again, talking to Ron McPherson about it. Like, I can't remember what his number was, but it's a significant majority of their budget is payroll, period.
Yeah, of course. It has to be.
And so, it would be, if there's more room in the budget, even if the percentage changes, it's still going to be more total salaries going out, whether it's more jobs or more salaries per teacher, if that general, percentage of the budget stays into payroll.
Yeah. I mean, this even goes into, people don't understand it. So many people always want to see an increase of funding into something as an investment. If they don't see it as an investment, they think it's a waste of tax dollars. Well, you want to talk about making Knox County more attractive for good companies to work for and more people to move here that have degrees, that have the opportunity to bring business here. Why would you not want a better funded education system? Why would you not want higher wages for teachers? So we're bringing in these better graduates with better teaching degrees. I mean, that to me, it just makes sense. It is the most important investment we can make right now, because better teachers means more people coming to Knox County, more businesses coming to Knox County, which is going to be better in the long run for us.
I mean, I agree. I think that's one of the things that the average person does not think about the schools as an investment, with or without kids. I think, especially people without kids, it's really easy to just write it off of, I pay a bunch of tax money for somebody else's babysitters.
Yeah.
But even at the same time, I think there's a lot of people, sometimes myself included, that don't see much more out of the school system than a babysitter.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think there's... we'll see as this if we ever get to post pandemic stuff and the impact of this pandemic and how much that has set our kids behind, and how much it's going to cost to catch them up. And I know we got some federal funds coming in for some of that kind of stuff,
which I want to know where that's accounted for in the budget, because it's not currently.
I'm trying to figure that out too, because
it's missing in action, and other cities are using their infrastructure funds right now. So I want to know why Knox County is not using it and where it is.
Yeah, I don't know, because which one?
The bipartisan infrastructure.
Okay, yeah, I was going before that. I was on the COVID ESSER.
Oh, there's pandemic relief funds that are unaccounted for as well.
Yeah, I'd like to know. I'd like to have a little better picture of what's going on with some of that stuff, especially the school stuff, because it's supposed to be, this is what our gap fill is. This is going to help make up for lost time and all that kind of stuff. And so far I haven't seen anything or any real conversation. Like I remember when it came out and when they made plans for it, but those plans are supposed to start here this semester of school.
Sure.
And I don't see anything as a
I don't know
parent
where
happening.
it is.
Right.
Exactly. And that's a problem for me. I mean, why is it unaccounted for? Are we just making a political stand and we're refusing to accept these funds, or are they being spent somewhere where it's not available to us? It's just a lack of transparency in all of Knox County government is an issue for me.
McPherson is on my list of people I want to talk to fairly soon, but he's having like a heart surgery or something.
Oh,
so
gosh.
I got to be respectful of life or something like that with him.
I will
Could figure that out.
I will tell you one of the pieces of infrastructure that I would certainly consider infrastructure that I'm excited about, that I think is a good use of funds, is the mental health facility.
I think that's something that I think a lot of people agree on, and I think a lot of people say yes, depending on where you put it.
Well, that hits home for me. So I think I touched on this on my website, or maybe my press release. There's been so many things I've put out, it's hard to keep track of what I said where. But what a lot of at least my close friends know, and what I would like voters to know is, my dad was an addict from the time he and my parents divorced when I was 5 until he passed in 2019. In Greene County, we didn't have anything like that available. We were supportive as a family, but we'd never been exposed to addiction or mental health crises or anything like that. So at the end of the day, family support wasn't enough, and unfortunately my dad didn't have any access to any sort of trained medical professionals or mental health professionals, and he succumbed to his addiction in 2019. So I don't want to see anyone in Knox County suffer that same fate. So I think this mental health facility is worth its weight in gold, and it's something I would always be willing to spend tax dollars on. Because at the end of the day, if I can see where my tax dollars are going, and I know it's going towards something positive, I'm okay for my tax dollars to be spent on that. That's the fiscal conservative in me. I don't necessarily think it means always cutting taxes and always cutting spending. I think it means ensuring we're spending our money well. And I'm telling you, that mental health facility, man, is going to do wonders for Knox County.
I mean, I'm hopeful for it as well. I think it's something that, again, in a bout of poor planning, is you dump the big Lakeshore facility with nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Granted, that Lakeshore facility was older than damn it itself, but
in the middle of a park, it's
right?
Just, but
which I always thought was a weirard premise. Like, we're gonna walk circles around crazy people.
Yeah.
How's that working for your mental health? You're looking
Yeah.
out the window, saw that guy walk by. He walked by again. He walked by again.
I understand.
Might mess with somebody's head, but I get it. Like I had some friends that worked there too, and it was not apparently not a very good place to be for anybody. But hopefully the new one will do better than that one did.
Well, it just goes back to what I'm saying. We're going to have to ensure our money's going, the money that's going to it is being spent properly, being spent efficiently.
Right. And I think that transparency in budgets in general, I think is something lacking that there's definitely room to at least do better at. Because I mean, I've tried to look at these budgets.
It's 400 something pages long. It's so much of it is financial legal jargon that a layperson, for lack of a better word, is either just not going to understand, or they're not going to take the time to understand it. And I get that. I've spent hours and hours pouring myself into the county budget because I wanted to know what I was talking about. I wanted to know where our money was going. But man, it's not okay that you have to spend hours and hours and hours to see where the money's going. I want my campaign, at least in part, to be informational for voters, so that give them at least a bite of where their money's going. I can't do it all, but it's like you're making the jobs page, the jobs description page for all the candidates. I think that's awesome that you're doing that. But why is that not on Knox County's government website? Why is that not available to the public? Why is the budget not easily navigable?
I mean, maybe not the budget one, but at least the why is my little rinky-dink podcast the one trying to do stuff like this, where we've got 3 major local media sources that could do 5 if you want to get into some of the papers and stuff like
Sure.
that. There's tons of people that have real budgets to do things, and I'm sitting here punking around on my computer for a couple hours putting together a more functional information piece for elections than we're going to get. We might get, News Sentinel might do their one day where they do everybody's quick bio in the paper that one day, but I mean, their subscription base sucks.
Well, you could have a graphic designer use Squarespace and make a website with all the campaign or all the candidate descriptions for $60 a year. And apparently that amount of transparency is not worth spending money on at the county level, which is also a problem.
Well, but I mean, it's also if they do it, it'll have to be a lawyer doing it for $250 an hour, and it'll be written in lawyer speak.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I mean, that's been the most of half of mine is me pulling it off. Like UT's got a pretty decent e-library access, is where I pulled a lot of info on, but it's all it's a sentence that's mostly English, and then it's
a bunch of statutes.
Well,
and codes.
TCA annotated, 16B paragraph F or whatever. And it's like, okay, now I got to go find that document and figure out what that actually says, and then come back. And then a lot of it too, at least for my job description page so far, that's been problematic is this is statewide county rules, but different counties have different subsets on those rules.
Yeah.
And so it's like, for some of the salaries I have put out is like the state says the mayor's budget has to be $171 whatever $1,000, but the county can do whatever on top and kind of stuff like that. And so it's like, well, I have the state's minimum requirements for it, but then we have our own subset. Like again, the trustee's office and the register of deeds and stuff like that. Some trustees' offices in certain parts of the state do a whole other set of stuff, where ours doesn't, because we have or the county clerk's office here does a whole bunch of stuff for the State Department of what is it? The State Transportation Department, as far as plates and licenses and stuff like that, where other counties, they don't handle that. There's a state office locally that does it for them. Yeah. But ours handles it because we have the volume and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I get it, but it's like, I'm trying to figure out what this one does.
Exactly.
Not what all of them do.
Yeah. And I think that should be more easily accessible. I get, all the legal jargon that's going to come with it, but I mean, there's nothing stopping them from having a page that in lay terms describes what the functions of each office. And that's just not readily available. For example, I wanted to see the details of Jacob's office. I mean, obviously I knew the basics of it, but his website is just a his link on the Knox County website is just a very, very, very vague and general description of the position. And then
even the state one's pretty vague in general.
Well, yeah, no, listen, this problem exists everywhere, but we have the opportunity to fix it in Knox County. And then a disclaimer about not sending in WWE memorabilia to his office to sign. Yeah.
That's fair. I mean, I think that's fair. I don't care. Like, I think that's one of the funny things to me. Like, I don't know why it's such a fun derogatory statement to call him a wrestler.
Oh, I'm not.
I don't get that one. Like,
my issues with him have nothing to do with wrestling.
I would say it always devolves to that, and I'm suffered it too. Like, I made a joke about a body slam at a meeting or something like that, and I was like, that was dumb. I shouldn't have said that.
I've gotten it too. Close friends of mine, when I pulled my petition, approached me and said, when you get to the commission, day one, you go to Jacob's office and you just choke slam him from behind the rope. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Well, I mean, and Driscoll and Eleven's a wrestler too.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I had no idea, honestly.
Yep. I don't think he's got to the top level, but he definitely has a history of history of it. So we might have a tag team match now. See, I do it too. I make fun of it and then I jump on board.
Gosh.
All right. So it's 5 questions time.
I'm ready.
I mean, you already know them, so just go.
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Okay. So the 5 questions, I think, a couple of these we already kind of answered in the process, sure. But we'll put them on in the short format. Is this first time running for office? If not, what else have you run for in the past? And then the future of your politics. This is the beginning of politics for you. Is this the top of what you're chasing down? Stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah. So this is the first time I've run for office. As far as future office, I'm not going to sit here and say no, because I mean, this is my first foray into the political realm. So I don't know how this is going to go. I mean, I truly believe that we're going to win, but once we get there, we'll see if I'm actually interested in running again. What I can promise you is that I have less than zero desire to run for any statewide or national office. I don't want to get in that mess in Nashville, and I even more don't want to get into the gridlock of D.C.
Well, I mean, I think if you want significant budget changes in schools, the state office is the only way you're going to get there.
Well, we've got somebody really good doing that. So Gloria Johnson and Sam McKenzie are, they're kind of championing that. So I'm going to let them keep doing what they're doing.
Well, we'll see how Gloria's summer goes, because she's got a fun redistricting game to play. But okay. Anyway, sorry. Question 2 is, what's your favorite ice cream?
So that is a more recent development. Girlfriend came home from her job the other day and brought home some Moose Tracks. So that is a new love I found. But if we're talking like locally, Cruise Farm has this birthday churn that is just unreal.
All right, I'm gonna have to check that one out.
It's seasonal, so they might not have it right now, but
they didn't. My first experience with them was a couple weeks ago, and they definitely didn't have it then because I would have jumped on that.
Well, when they have it, get it.
Birthday cake or ish stuff is some of my favorite. All right, favorite place to eat here in town?
Sweet Peas, without a doubt. Big barbecue guy. They've got the best in town.
All right, they're bad. These are fighting words, I think.
I like Dead End, but Sweet Peas is better.
All right, number 4, and I think number 4 applies specifically well to you as a candidate as well as like that. Do you feel like partisanship matters to voters in elections?
I would say yes, but only to a degree. I think it matters because I think it helps you narrow down which candidates at least share your beliefs or your values at a base level. But that's not...
Again, I say this is not normal format for the 5 questions. I apologize, but I think that's what I think that's what I am obviously not a pretty happy partisan person. So, with your history in changing parties and stuff like that, to me screams that's the part of the problem is that you were stuck as a Republican, forced to support a candidate that you didn't want to.
Sure.
With your partisanship on the line because you didn't want that.
Sure.
And so as a to me that is the illustration of the problem, is that you still hold a lot of the general values.
Sure.
Your fiscal conservative being the easy one that we've talked about a bunch, which to me is one of the good things that Republicans say they do, but do and say they do is not always the same thing. But I think both parties are more than susceptible to that move where this is a pillar we stand on, and then when we get the chance, we don't do. Sure. And so again, to me, I think you're an interesting case in the conversation, and that's why I felt comfortable interrupting your 5 questions.
No, well, I get that. Well, so one of the things, and it's one of the things that I loved, or at least respected about the GOP when I considered myself a member, was that I truly believed it was the big tent party. I believed there was room for ideologies all across the spectrum. As long as you held a few certain core principles, I firmly believed it was the big tent party. And then, after the, I guess Trump takeover or whatever you want to call it, I no longer felt like that was the case. And, it wasn't like I immediately transitioned to the Democratic Party. There were several years where I was voting across the ballot for, I had done my own research on the candidates that I liked, but there were, several years where I just didn't know where I belonged. And it was only in the last couple of years that I decided that it was the Democratic Party that was becoming the big tent party. So it's not like I have, I switched sides just because the GOP didn't want me anymore. I still voted for plenty of GOP candidates back in the day. But it was just upon further reflection and some introspective thought that I felt like the Democratic Party was the new home for me and that they were the new big tent. And I think the party as a whole had to readjust for that. If you'd asked me 10 years ago if the Democratic Party was a big tent, I would have told you no. But I think they have done a lot of pivoting and a lot of welcoming in response to where the GOP is now. And I think they've pivoted on a lot of their policies for that. And to me, it just felt more home.
Okay. All right. So I think this one will probably come off a little easier for you than most. So you are running as a Democrat.
Sure.
Question 5 is, I want you to tell me about somebody who is a Republican, preferably locally, but it can be state or federally, that you like the work they're doing, you respect who they are, you respect their leadership, those kind of things.
Yeah. I'm going to cheat and give you 2 because I'm going to do an independent and a Republican, if that's okay with you.
I mean, as long as it's not a Democrat, that's the rule. I've had a lot of cheat answers, so This is not the first. I had, who was it? I can't remember who I was asking, but they were Republican, and they were talking about there was a state senator from Memphis area.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I like him because he's anti-abortion. It's like, well, he's not a Democrat anymore because he's anti-abortion.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really count as a correct answer.
So my independent is a candidate. It's Dominic Oakley. I think she has a wonderful vision for KCS. I think she will do very well on the school board. I think her experience is extremely non-traditional, which I think is very much needed at KCS. For Republican, I actually had planned out to say Liz Cheney, but then
she's not a Republican anymore. Can't say that one.
Well, I changed my mind after listening to your episode with Eric Ludden.
Okay.
I did some more research on him and obviously just listened to his story that he gave on your episode with him, and man, I his perspective on offenders being in the public defender's office is incredible.
That office is amazing.
No,
like that whole thing is unbelievable.
As I look more into what he's been doing, I'm like, man, this guy needs to be DA or needs to be considered for law director for the county, something to that effect.
No, he doesn't want all that.
Well, those are the people you want. Those are the people you want in those positions. But yeah, I think he is doing an incredible job. That is a Republican that I would never have an issue voting for. That's for him. And if,
well, luckily he doesn't have to worry about it because he's running unopposed right now, which in general I like choice, but I don't think there's any reason to choose any other.
Sure.
Sharif was cool. Sharif ran against him a couple years ago, and Sharif was a really cool guy, and I was happy about him too. But it was I apologized to Eric in the interview because I was like, we're not going to talk much your campagn.
Well, you don't have to.
I don't have to talk about your campaign. Plus, your office is so freaking cool. I want to talk about your office and what your office does.
Well, exactly. And he's, I don't know if anybody will pull to run against him, but to me, he went into that without a partisan perspective and truly went into that role after that special election saying, how can I improve this office and in turn improve those Knox Countyans that are coming into my office. Right. I think he's done that.
And I think, what I think is particularly special about that office that as a commissioner you could do a lot to help with is to try to figure out how to unify the services we have available.
Yeah.
Mental health facility included as that thing comes on board and stuff like that.
That's going to be a joint venture, not with just the county commission, but with the judicial section of the county government. I mean, that's going to be a tag team. The commission doesn't need to be as bold to think that it can kind of be the oversight on that mental health facility just because it's got the money. I think a tag team with Lutton's office is going to be crucial to ensuring that is running correctly and that the proper procedures are in place to actually care for these individuals and not make it a cycle of mental health crisis to jail to the streets and so on.
Right. All right. So that's the 5 questions. Now is when you get to actually officially plug your stuff.
Yeah, I am all over social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's Dylan Earley for County Commission at Large. On Facebook, it's Elect Dylan E on Twitter. I think it's also Elect Dylan E on Instagram, and then we've got electdylanEarley.com on
spell Early for everybody.
It is Earley. It is not Early, contrary to popular belief.
I mean, that's how I would want to say it looking at it.
I understand.
I mean, that's just Early.
Hey, my question to everyone has always been, why does the E before the Y make the word sound like ear instead of at the beginning? You know what I mean?
English is stupid. That's why. I mean, we've been over this.
Hey, I'm right there with you.
There's I can't remember any of the good ones right now, but we were I saw one of the posts the other day, and it's like it's I before E except after C,
yeah,
and then the whole paragraph of E before I words,
yeah,
and none of them are after C, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why I was a history major, not an English major.
Yeah, I'm not a broadcast person either, but I do it anyway. So that's all I got. If you got any last thing you want to get out,
I think we covered it all, man. I'm just glad to be here. I love this. I've kind of fanboyed up until this point, listening to all the episodes. So I love what you're doing.
I appreciate
keep it up.
All right, outro. Early. Dylan Earley, everybody. Commission at Large, seat number 10. That's countywide. So if you're in the county and you're going to vote, he will be on the ballot that you were looking at. Primaries. Well, no, he's not going to be in the primary. Was running. So anyway, we're almost in agreement at gmail.com. You get us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. We also have an Instagram page that we never use, but you can follow the 2 pictures we have on there and tell us how much you love those. Almostinagreement.com. That's got my job description sheet that I'm working on. That also has my voter guide that's going to have links to the episodes with each candidate as well as links to their pages of some way, shape, or form. As I had the time to get through it because, Knox County won't pay me to do it, so I got to do it myself. Go to your favorite podcast provider, follow us, subscribe there, something like that. Tell your friends about us. We're going to keep busting through these and do as many of them as we can. I've got 3 or 4 more this week. I got 5 already scheduled next week, so I'm going to try to get as many in before spring break as I can and then come back with a mad dash or whatever's left and then start over again once we get past primaries on who we know we're going to get in the general. So we're almost in agreement. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great afternoon, and we'll talk to you all soon.